Now, let's not just stand around. Let's start the meal.
Wait a minute. There's only one chair left?
Oh. Did the poor pretzel sellers think they were going to sit at the same table as us? If that happens, the food will start to taste cheap. I've arranged for a separate table for you. The two of you can eat in the garden.
That's a $2 item from the $1 store. Quite a luxury for you, isn't it? I hope you appreciate it. But, since I went over budget, this is your table. Here, a cardboard box and paper cups.
With a smirk, my sister-in-law brought over a cardboard box that had been placed at the edge of the living room. A part of the box was cut into a circle, with a paper cup fitting snugly into the hole. It seemed she had carefully crafted a drink holder. Every year, we celebrate my mother-in-law's birthday, and this year, my mother was also invited. However, it turned out that my mother-in-law had involved my mother just to make me feel uncomfortable.
If there's anything you want to eat, just let me know. I'll put it on a plate and pass it through the window.
Please, take your time and enjoy yourselves today.
My sister-in-law shoved the cardboard into my confused mother's hands and then looked at me, clearly enjoying my reaction.
Shall we go home?
Yeah, let's. My mother slowly placed the cardboard on the floor, and we left my in-laws' house.
I am so sorry. I'll cut ties with them right away.
As soon as we left the house, the door flew open, and my husband rushed out, bowing deeply to my mother.
It's okay, really. Don't worry about it.
What could be okay about this? I also thought it was odd that my husband was apologizing. I couldn't shake off my anger. However, without me doing anything, my in-laws would end up paying for the cruel treatment they inflicted on my mother, leading to a disaster. I am Kelly. I'm 26 years old, working in an office job, and recently married. My husband, Mark, works in sales. Our meeting was a common one, introduced by mutual friends. If I were to force a sense of destiny into our marriage, it would be that we grew up in the same town and attended the same elementary and middle schools. But my husband is 2 years older than me, so we never really knew each other. So, although we both lived in the same town all our lives, we didn't meet until we were adults. From an outsider's perspective, we might look like an ordinary couple. But to me, this ordinary life feels like a happy one. However, just because I feel happy doesn't mean everything is going smoothly. I have some struggles in my relationship with my in-laws. It all started when our parents first met each other.
I run a small restaurant, but I'm already 55, so I'm starting to think about retirement.
Oh, a restaurant? That's impressive.
It's just a small pretzel shop, though.
Soft pretzels today are completely different from the ones we used to eat as kids, aren't they? Back then, they only came in salt or sugar flavors, but now they have so many stylish options.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yes, there are even pretzel bars, and some places serve them with creative dishes. The image has changed so much.
Our shop doesn't have anything that fancy. Our simple cheese dip is popular. And since I sometimes help out at other shops, ours is only open occasionally. It's a pretty laid-back place.
If it's on the weekend, I take over the shop for my mother since I'm off work.
You must be very busy.
As my mother talked about her restaurant, my in-laws showed great interest, and the conversation picked up. My husband and father seemed a bit hesitant to join in, but overall, the atmosphere was good. The conversation between my mother and my in-laws was lively, likely because they shared the common ground of being business owners.
You run a printing company, right? That's far more impressive than what I do.
No, ours is just a small company in the countryside. Nowadays, with internet advertising, easy home printing, and the big, cheap online printing services, it's getting really tough.
But our company has been around for a long time, and many local businesses and shops continue to use our services, so we're managing somehow. Especially with restaurants, we get a lot of orders from popular places. It seems like flyers, coupons, and business cards run out quickly.
Also, our daughter Susan, who isn't here today, helps with website creation and management at our company. Restaurants can't do without a website, right? So, the website business has also been supported quite a bit by the restaurant industry.
When the conversation shifted to their printing business, I, like my husband and father, found it difficult to join in. However, since the atmosphere was lively, I pretended to understand the discussion between my mother and in-laws, nodding along as they talked. The meeting between our parents ended without any issues. I felt relieved, thinking that I could build a good relationship with my in-laws. However, on the way home, I had a question in mind and decided to ask my husband. Why did you tell me not to worry about anything your parents might say before the meeting? Because they have unusual personalities? They seemed like good people.
They were in a good mood today. They're not always like that. I think you'll understand eventually, so just be cautious.
My husband looked at me with a worried expression. Not understanding the meaning behind his words or his expression, I gave him a puzzled look in return. I assumed that my in-laws were just strict with their family, and that's why the impression they left on my husband and me was different. At that time, I came to that conclusion, but I soon came to understand the meaning behind my husband's words and expression. The following Sunday, while I was watching the store because my mother had to step out, my in-laws showed up. Oh, Mary and Tony, you came.
Yes. We did, but... Is this the shop?
Mary looked around at the sign and the menu outside the shop, as if she were looking at something filthy. It seemed like the reality was far from what she had imagined. It's surprising, isn't it? A shop in the middle of a residential area, converted from a garage.
Yes. I'm surprised by how shabby it is.
What?
With all the talk about bars and whatnot, I thought it would be some grand shop, but it's just a rundown shed.
I think it was you, Mary, who mentioned bars and such, not me or my mother.
Is your mother not here?
She's out on another job.
She mentioned helping out at other shops, so I thought she had a branch store, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
She must be working part-time because there's no sales at the shop. There's no way customers would come to a place like this.
That's not exactly the case. But, to be honest, it's understandable if they think that way. My mother's shop didn't require much money. My father, an amateur, did half the work himself through DIY projects. As a result, the shop looks like a homemade warehouse. However, my mother's shop is known for its great taste, so the appearance doesn't matter. I'll bake some pretzels now. Please try our famous cheese dip. I was thoroughly trained by my mother on how to bake pretzels, so while my other cooking skills are at a housewife level, I believe my pretzels are at a professional level. Here you go. It's absolutely delicious, so please give it a try.
What is this? It's literally just cheese on top, isn't it?
Is this the modern pretzel we've heard so much about?
It may just look like salt and cheese, but there's more to it. The pretzel dough has a lot of thought put into it.
I don't need to taste it. I can already imagine how it tastes.
My in-laws then threw the pretzels into the trash can outside the shop. I was so shocked by the sight that I couldn't close my mouth or find any words.
I've got a good idea of what kind of people your family is. I won't interfere with your marriage to Mark since that's between you two, but don't spread your poverty to us.
While I was frozen in shock, my in-laws left. I looked into the trash can and saw the pretzels, still steaming. Instead of feeling angry, I felt a deep sadness. That evening, I told my husband about what his parents had done.
I'm really sorry. I'll talk to them. Now you understand what I was trying to say, right? It's like my mom and dad just say whatever comes to their minds without filtering it. Plus, they seem to have this weird pride because they're business owners, and they lack consideration for others.
So that's why they said something about poverty at the end.
Yeah, they're too obsessed with money and appearances. Actually, my sister is the same way, and that's what led to her divorce.
Did she call her husband poor or something?
It's the opposite. He was an engineer with a good income, but my parents and sister kept going on and on about money, and he got fed up with it.
My husband bowed his head as if he had done something wrong, which made me feel bad for even bringing it up. It seemed like my mother and my in-laws didn't get along well. My mother doesn't care about appearances or money, so I don't know what they might criticize her for. I started to feel anxious about whether I could build a good relationship with my in-laws right before our marriage. After that, my husband scolded his parents for throwing away the pretzels. However, he mentioned that he had scolded them before for other things, but there had never been any real improvement in their behavior, so I shouldn't get my hopes up. He also suggested that we only visit his family once a year, during New Year's, to maintain some distance between me and his family. Besides that, even if he needs to visit his parents' house, he promised to go alone as much as possible. Although I would like to build a good relationship with my in-laws, I realized that rushing it wouldn't lead to anything positive. So, I decided to take my husband's advice. Even though we had a rocky start, we managed to get married without any major issues. Our married life has been smooth, and I am living a happy life. However, now that I've become a wife, new challenges are starting to arise. 3 months after our wedding, during our happy newlywed life, I received a phone call from my sister-in-law.
Our mother's birthday is coming up soon.
Oh, is that so?
Yes, and we've been celebrating her birthday every year. Could you take care of the preparations this time?
Me?
I've been handling it until now, but since you're Mark's wife, you're now the lowest-ranking member of our family, right? So, I thought I'd pass the responsibility to you.
What? It became clear to me that my sister-in-law was just like my in-laws. Apparently, as the wife, I was considered the lowest in the family hierarchy. Although her words bothered me, I also saw this as an opportunity. My husband had said that we only needed to see his family once during New Year's, but if possible, I wanted to build a good relationship with them. If I took on the preparations for my mother-in-law's birthday party, it could be the start of a better relationship. All right, I'll do it.
That's a relief. Well then, I'll be counting on you from now on.
With a cheerful voice, my sister-in-law ended the call. I figured that these small efforts could be important for building a good relationship. I smiled, imagining a positive future. However, I soon found myself regretting my hasty decision to take on the birthday party preparations.
What is this? Did you actually make this food by hand? You really are so miserly.
This salad has salmon on it. I guess this is the best a poor person can come up with.
Did you make this cake too? It would have been easier to buy one, and of course, a cake made by a pâtissier would taste better. Why go through such unnecessary effort?
Look. There's even a poor store's pretzel here. It's not even worth having in my sight.
She picked up the plate of pretzels, which I was proud of, from the edge of the table and moved it to the kitchen counter. Thanks to my husband, it wasn't thrown in the trash, which was a relief. But not throwing food in the trash is just basic decency. I didn't miss the fact that they said whatever they wanted about the food I prepared. However, today's goal is to build a good relationship with my in-laws. I can't lose my temper before we've even sat down at the table. I took a deep breath, forced a smile, and managed to hold back my anger. Sensing that I was trying to keep my cool, my husband refrained from scolding his family to avoid creating a bad atmosphere. I'm sorry. It seems like bought items would have been better than homemade ones. I'll make sure to do that next time.
Yes, please do.
Here, this is a gift.
Oh, it's a shawl.
She seemed pleased at first, spreading it out and feeling the texture. But then, she began searching for the brand logo or tag instead. Once she found the logo, she pulled out her smartphone and started searching for something.
What is this? It's a cheap $100 shawl. What a disappointment.
Isn't $100 quite decent? I swallowed the retort that was on the tip of my tongue. Without folding the shawl, she carelessly placed it next to the neglected pretzels.
What a disappointment this year. Better luck next time.
The first birthday party I had worked so hard to prepare since morning ended in shambles. After my in-laws left, I washed the dishes, occasionally picking at the cold pretzels with one hand. The next day, I received a message from my mother-in-law. Though she had harshly criticized me, I had at least prepared for the birthday party, so I assumed it was a thank you message and checked the contents with a relaxed mindset. However, the message listed out things like it's unacceptable that the food was handmade and I was disappointed with the cheap gift, just repeating what I had heard the previous day. It seemed like a summary of yesterday's criticisms. There were so many points that they didn't fit on one screen, and I had to scroll down to see them all. After the bullet points, she attached photos from a previous birthday party. The table at my in-laws' house was filled with dishes that looked very impressive. I recalled that my in-laws' printing company had many clients who ran popular restaurants, so these dishes were probably from one of those customers. The photos were likely an unspoken command to do it like this next time. With a sigh, I closed the messaging app. 1 year later, it was once again time for my mother-in-law's birthday party. Just as I was thinking it was time to start preparing, I received a message from her. With a heavy feeling in my fingers, I checked the message, and as expected, it was another long list of bullet points. Upon closer inspection, I saw that they were the names of dishes, with the corresponding restaurant names written next to them. There were about 8 different places listed, and when I looked them up, they were all in different locations. Honestly, this seemed more troublesome than cooking the food myself. Additionally, she mentioned that the gift should be cash, that I should pick her up by car on the day, and other such requests. This was practically a set of instructions. However, having clear instructions made it easier since I didn't have to think for myself. I realized that I had unknowingly become completely obedient to my mother-in-law. I couldn't help but feel like I had fallen right into her trap, but it was better than being nagged at. On the day of the second birthday party, some of the stores my mother-in-law had specified were not open until later in the day, so it would have been impossible for me to pick everything up by myself. My husband helped me out.
Why did Mark come to pick me up? That's your job as his wife, isn't it?
She scolded me the moment she arrived. I felt a sense of unease about how the day would unfold. However, since I had prepared everything as instructed this time, there were no complaints from my in-laws once the meal began.
The gift is $300? That's stingy. Make it an even $500.
It seems my sense of what's normal has become numb. I didn't even think much of this anymore. Perhaps I've become completely tamed by my mother-in-law. I now understand why my husband had resignedly said that scolding his fan mail wouldn't change anything. It's less stressful to just quietly obey. However, even though I've become numb to most things under my mother-in-law's influence, there are still some things I can't tolerate.
Why are there pretzels here? I didn't ask for these.
Because I really wanted everyone to try them.
I'm the star of the day. Don't put anything on the table that I didn't request.
She grabbed the plate of pretzels and hurled it at me. The plate hit my chest, leaving my clothes smeared with cheese and oil. The plate fell to the floor, and the pretzels scattered all over with a thud. When she threw my pretzels in the trash last time, I was too shocked to say anything. But now, I know this family is capable of such things. I slammed the table and stood up, yelling at my mother-in-law. How could you do that?
That's right. Mom, this is too much. Apologize to Kelly.
There's no need to get angry over wasting a single plate of pretzels, is there? They're cheap compared to the other dishes.
It's not about the cost. That's not why I'm angry.
Oh, how scary. Poor people really are narrow-minded. We've received everything we need, so shall we leave?
As she walked out of the house, my father-in-law and sister-in-law followed her like obedient children. I had never yelled at anyone before, so after my mother-in-law left, my body started trembling, and I couldn't move. Then, my husband touched my shoulder and spoke to me.
I'll take care of the cleanup, so why don't you rest for a bit?
Hearing my husband's voice, I felt reassured and was able to move again. I'm okay. But instead, can you give them a ride?
It's fine, just let them be. They can catch a taxi or something.
We can't just leave them like that, can we? Instead, make sure to give them a firmer warning than usual.
Got it.
After my husband chased after his family and left the house, I started cleaning up by picking up the pretzels that had fallen and lost their shape on the floor. Another year passed, and it was time again for my mother-in-law's birthday party. However, this year, I probably don't need to prepare or attend. My mother-in-law was apparently furious that I yelled at her, so she told me not to visit the in-laws for New Year's. Instead of building a better relationship, things have only gotten worse. Since I was told not to come to the in-laws' house, I would likely be excluded from the birthday party as well. But this year, I wouldn't be able to prepare for her birthday party even if I wanted to. That's because our daughter was born. Just looking at her smiling or sleeping face makes me forget any unpleasantness in an instant. At least, that's what I thought, but my in-laws proved to have more power than I had imagined. One day, I received a message from my mother-in-law, who hadn't contacted me in a while. I wondered what it could be, and when I checked the contents, it was an invitation to the birthday party. Since I couldn't prepare this year, my sister-in-law would take care of the arrangements, and the party would be held at my in-laws' house. Moreover, she mentioned that she would like my mother to come along this year as well. She even asked if I could bring the pretzels that hadn't been eaten before. I had been worried since I was told not to come for New Year's, but it seemed that the birth of a grandchild had softened my in-laws a bit. I felt happy and immediately contacted my mother. On the day of the third birthday party, my husband and I headed to my in-laws' house with our daughter and my mother.
Welcome. Thank you for coming, Beth.
Oh, it's nothing. Here are the pretzels you asked for.
Thank you. Please, come this way.
We were led to the living room by Mary. As we entered the living room, the sight of a lavish spread of beautifully arranged dishes on the table immediately caught my eye. However, my mother's expression darkened as she looked at the food.
Oh, I also bought some pretzels on my own. Look, aren't they stylish? This one comes with a citrus sauce made with lemon, this one with a garlic butter sauce mixed with cheese and egg yolk, and this one is a cinnamon sugar pretzel. And this is honey mustard. Let's put your mother's simple cheese dip alongside them.
This is a nice contrast. It seems like using these cheap pretzels as decorations rather than food was the right choice.
Why don't you try serving these stylish pretzels at your place too? If you can make them, that is.
My mother's expression remained clouded as she looked at the stylish, well-presented pretzels. I regretted bringing her here, making her feel this way. It was as if my mother-in-law had deliberately involved her just to make me regret it.
Come on, let's stop standing around and start the meal.
I clenched my teeth as I headed toward the table. Mary sat down, followed by Tony and Susan, when I suddenly noticed something. Wait a minute, there's only one chair left?
Of course, that's for Mark. Did you two, the pretzel poppers, think you'd be sitting at the same table as us? If you did, our lovely meal would end up smelling like poverty. We've arranged a different spot for you.
My mother-in-law couldn't contain her laughter and pointed out the window with a smirk. When my mother and I looked in the direction she pointed, we saw outdoor chairs that I recognized from the dollar store.
The two of you poppers can have the seats in the yard.
Those are $2 items from the dollar store. Quite a luxury for you too, right? I hope you like them. But we went over budget, so here's your table. Here, cardboard and paper cups.
With a grin, my sister-in-law brought over a piece of cardboard from the corner of the living room. A circular section had been cut out, and a paper cup was fitted into it. They'd thoughtfully made us drink holders.
If there's anything you want to eat, just let us know. We'll serve it to you through the window.
Please, take your time and enjoy yourselves.
Mary and Susan began laughing out loud, their smirks turning into full-blown laughter. Even Tony joined in. My sister-in-law shoved the cardboard into my mother's hands, looking at me to gauge my reaction. It was clear she was enjoying my discomfort.
Shall we go home?
Yeah, let's. My mother slowly placed the cardboard on the floor, and we left my in-laws' house. As we stepped out of the front door, we heard my husband shouting from inside.
We're never coming back to this house again. Don't ever contact us.
Startled by my husband's voice, our daughter began to cry. As I was soothing her, the door burst open with a bang, and my husband came out.
I'm truly sorry, Beth. I'm cutting ties with them for good.
My husband bowed deeply to my mother.
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
But how could it be okay? It didn't seem right for my husband to apologize. I couldn't help but feel angry. However, without me doing anything, my in-laws would soon face the consequences of their cruel treatment toward my mother, leading to a major disaster. 1 month later, on a Sunday, my husband had plans and went out alone, so I decided to visit my mother's shop. My father, who had the day off, was taking care of our daughter at home. My mother and I were spending a relaxed time together, attending to the occasional customer who came by. Then, an unwanted guest arrived.
Hey! What's going on here?
My mother, who had no idea what was happening, was left standing with her mouth agape after being yelled at so suddenly. I thought she looked a bit silly, but then I realized my own mouth was half open too, so I quickly closed it. What happened all of a sudden?
Several stores and companies have suddenly stopped placing orders with our printing company. And they've told us they're switching their website services to other companies too.
Huh? And what does that have to do with us?
Don't play dumb. When we asked the stores why they stopped ordering from us, they said it was because we treated your mother terribly. You've been spreading bad rumors, haven't you?
We wouldn't go around spreading rumors like that. Oh. I suddenly remembered something. I might be the one who caused this situation. Could it be from that time? When I went to that bar near the station, during your main business.
What? Oh, you mean when we had lunch there during their daytime hours?
Yes, I remember telling the owner about the cardboard table incident during some casual conversation.
Ah, so that's what started all this.
Hey, don't just reach an understanding between the two of you. Explain it so I can understand too.
My mother-in-law was mixing anger with desperation, becoming increasingly noisy. It seemed that her family's company was in deeper trouble than I had imagined. Since I caused this situation, I felt I needed to explain it properly. My mother's main job isn't running a pretzel shop. She's actually a freelance food consultant. She helps with restaurant startups, supports new menu development, trains employees, improves operations efficiency, reviews costs to turn around struggling businesses, and even advises on marketing strategies. She does it all.
What are you talking about? If she's that capable, Why would she run a pretzel shop out of her garage in a residential area? She should focus on her own business first.
My mother is running this shop by choice. She used to run a high-end, reservation-only restaurant with only 3 seats, offering a single special course. The restaurant was so popular that at its peak, reservations were booked out more than 6 months in advance.
Your mother was such a skilled chef?
Yes. That's why so many people sought her out for advice on cooking and business management. Since my mother is generous, she gave advice freely to those who asked for it, which eventually led her to start consulting in the food industry. Right?
Yes. I was running the restaurant by myself, but after turning 50, I realized I didn't have the physical stamina to keep up, so I decided to close the restaurant and focus entirely on food consulting.
By the way, those fancy dishes at the birthday party a month ago were from restaurants my mother had worked with. Since she's a pro, she recognized where most of the dishes came from at a glance. The pretzels that stood out were particularly intriguing, weren't they?
Yes. The name of the restaurant was even printed on the cutlery set bags, so it was easy to tell. The owner of that place tends to focus too much on presentation, often at the expense of taste.
So when my mother went to give him some advice, I tagged along and casually mentioned the birthday party. Now that I think about it, the owner was quite upset, and rightly so. It was as if someone had insulted his mentor. The food industry has strong connections, and the owner likely spread the word. My mother is revered as a sort of guru by popular local eateries, so the news spread quickly.
But why? Why run a shop here?
What? This is just my office.
And why? Pretzels?
What? Because I like pretzels. And the neighborhood kids and locals seem to enjoy them too.
In other words, it's not a profit-driven business. Upon realizing that my mother was the one who had elevated these restaurants to their popular status, my mother-in-law seemed to lose all her strength. Considering how much she cares about appearances, it wasn't surprising that she hadn't noticed.
Please help us.
Pardon?
Please help us! In just 1 month, our orders have decreased to an unbelievable extent. If this keeps up, our business won't survive. Please, talk to everyone and ask them to start placing orders with us again.
Speaking of which, wasn't your company mainly supported by local businesses? Why did they choose to use your company instead of cheaper online printing services?
Perhaps because I always advised them to maintain strong local connections?
That makes sense. They probably valued the connection with local businesses. But if online printing is cheaper, switching to save on costs makes sense too. They don't really need to maintain ties with a company like yours, do they?
Wait! I'll apologize. Please, persuade everyone. If it's you, you can convince them, right?
Well.
My mother began to think with a serious expression. The next words she spoke would determine the fate of my in-laws' business. I was eagerly anticipating what she would say, while my mother-in-law watched her with a pleading look.
In today's world, cost reduction is crucial. It's fine to prioritize connections when your business is doing well, but survival comes first.
My mother-in-law was knocked out. Realizing she wouldn't be helped, she collapsed to her knees. I decided to deliver the final blow. My husband said he's cutting ties with your family, so please don't come here anymore.
I understand. Could I at least have one pretzel?
I don't think someone like you would appreciate something from a poor pretzel shop like ours, so you'd better not. As I dismissed her, my mother-in-law, still shaky on her feet, left our presence with unsteady steps. That night, I told my husband about Mary's visit to my mother's shop. To which he responded with a laugh.
That's fine. If she comes again, just send her away.
After that, the sales of my in-laws' printing company plummeted even more than expected. The story of how my family was mistreated by my family-in-law spread not only among restaurants but also to the supermarkets and other retail stores where these restaurants source their supplies. The bad reputation continued to grow, and even businesses and stores that didn't know about my mother started to stop using my in-laws' printing company. It seems that the company isn't going to go bankrupt immediately, but it is steadily heading down that path. Since I'm not very familiar with business management, I asked my husband what would happen to his family's business from here. What happens when a company goes bankrupt? I have this image of the president being burdened with a huge amount of debt.
I'm not an expert either, but if the president is a guarantor when the company borrows money, then there's a chance that could happen.
What if he's not a guarantor?
If they go through bankruptcy proceedings, the debt is wiped out, so they won't be burdened with massive debt. But before the debt is wiped out, they'd have to liquidate all their assets to pay off as much as possible. So, when it's all over, they'd be left with nothing. I'm not sure if my father is a guarantor, but I know they took out loans. This means that either way, it's going to be hell if they go bankrupt.
I don't fully understand, but it seems that if the company goes bankrupt, in the worst case, they'll end up with huge debt, and even in the best case, they'll be left with nothing. My in-laws are over 60 years old. If they end up with nothing at this age, can they still enjoy their retirement? My sister-in-law is in her 30s and can still work, but can she earn enough from her website creation and management job to support her aging parents? There seem to be many issues, but I have no intention of offering a helping hand to the family who labeled us as poor, looked down on us, and treated us so cruelly. My husband seems to share the same sentiment. I hope we can continue to live our lives together as a family. We return to our simple, happy life. My husband is working diligently. Since I'm on maternity leave, I often take our daughter to my mother's shop. My mother is still happily baking pretzels for the neighborhood and the local school children. I hope this ordinary life continues without change. How did you enjoy today's story? Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.